Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is? Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And for those of you who like these type of videos, please remember to click like down below, help keep those likes higher than the dislikes. But I came across a video by Jeff Cavalier, aka Athlean-X, aka Curl-Lean-X, discussing fat loss. And actually it was a really good video. People know that I have been at times critical of some things Jeff says regarding strength training. But when it comes to something like fat loss and staying lean, Jeff obviously knows what he's doing. Okay, I don't think any reasonable person is going to question that. But the interesting thing for me is that coming from the other direction, I'm someone who has lost 100 pounds of body fat before. 100 pounds of body fat. I don't get ultra lean. I don't get ultra ripped. So I'm coming from a different direction as Jeff, but as someone who has been through that journey, when I listened to what he said in this video and took it in, he's right. Everything that he said, even discussing his ideas on it and what he uses to stay lean, are the same sort of ideas that I had to use to lose 100 pounds. Other people I know who've lost large amounts of body fat have had to adhere to the basic principles that Jeff outlined. So he really and truly knows what he's talking about there, because people do need to remember that. When you look at someone who's really ripped and you assume that they know a lot about fat loss, they may not be able to help someone like you who needs to lose 50 pounds. Okay? They might be someone who's naturally lean, who knows how to get ripped, and they don't have the same struggles that you have. So you don't want to automatically assume that. That's a really, really bad way to go about things. And people make that mistake here, that they look at the finished product and they don't know where a person has been. You may not know much about their journey, and they may not be able to help you on a different journey. But in this case, he was actually really good. And I will describe it as him basically breaking down that fat loss is about consistency and commitment. Consistency and commitment. And it really is that. That is actually the biggest key. And he put that in right up front because he felt it was the most important part. Someone who has lost 100 pounds themselves, when he said that, I'm going to agree. That is the most important part. And he nailed that. He nailed that. Because all this other stuff is noise and fine details that might help you lose an extra 5 pounds here or there. It's about consistency. And when we look at any sort of diet, people need to realize that. Any diet that you can't follow is not going to be a good idea for fat loss. I don't care how lean or how ripped it got somebody, because they don't follow it either. I mean, a perfect example, how many guys out there bulk and cut all the time? How many guys you see who, oh, well, they know how to get really ripped? Yeah, they know how to get loose fat. They don't know how to keep the fat off. In other words, they use a strategy that's temporary and not sustainable. That is of no use. Because, again, me coming from a sports and a fitness perspective, I don't care what body fat someone can get down to for a week. That's completely irrelevant, because I would never encourage anybody to do a bodybuilding show. I think physique competition is ridiculous. I'm not a fan of it. That's my opinion. Just like it might be your opinion that you think powerlifting is stupid and no one should do it. Exactly, and you have a right to that opinion. We can agree to disagree. It's how things go. You have a right to your opinion. I think it's idiotic. So I would never encourage someone to get to a body fat they can't stay at. Going down to 7% body fat if you're just going to be 15% 6 months later is stupid, in my opinion. You might not think that it is, and that's okay. Jeff stays lean. He's figured out his consistency, because the guy is lean all the time for years and years. Throws out that word consistency. Yeah, it doesn't matter what dietary approach you use. If you can do it, you need to look at a diet and say, hey, here's this diet, I'm going to lose some body fat. Well, I'd be happy using whatever method it is for 3 years straight. If you look at it and say, oh, I think I could only do that a few months, well, that's not going to work. I don't care whether it's a keto diet, whether you're going to do some bizarre form of fasting, whatever dietary approach you think that you're going to take, you have to be able to look at that and say, can I sustain that? Because anything that you do to lose fat, or to which you're going to return to the old lifestyle, you're going to regain all the fat. So if you come off the diet you're using because it's not sustainable, it's not going to work. Same thing I see guys, oh, I'm going to use this cutting drug. They get fat again. They regain their fat after. Because you know what? You're not going to use Clen or DNP year round. Not going to happen. At least I hope you're not going to try. I would really hope you're not going to try to do that. People might be dumb enough to do that. So you've got to be looking at these things and say, can I sustain this? If you decide you're going to do 4 hours of cardio a day to lose weight, you better be prepared to continue to do that 4 hours of cardio a day for the next 3 years. And then after the 3 years, you decide to get fat again, and you can quit doing it then, right? But you need to understand that any method used is going to have to be consistent. It's going to have to be commitment and consistent. And honestly, he almost could have ended the video there. Realistically, had he driven that home, he could have ended it. But he did go into a lot of other details discussing this whole concept that he broke down of you can't have cheap, fast, and good. You can only pick 2 out of the 3. Also actually true. And we come over to that same point because we come over to the fast. I mean, usually fast weight loss, alone, usually equals a rebound, right? Usually the faster you lose body fat, the more it's going to rebound because you're not going to be able to be consistent with what you do. Not going to be able to be consistent with what you do. Cheap could also say, are you looking for a shortcut? I mean, even though when he used the word cheap there, cheap could be financial cost. Cheap could also be, can I just use a shortcut of some type, a biohack to do this, right? Well, that could be using a drug. It could be Clen or DNP or a thyroid hormone, right? Some sort of fat burner. That would be cheap also because you're not going to necessarily put in a lot of value and work. You're just going to grab a cheap product because those things are cheap. Take it to lose some fat. And so you might do it fast and it might be cheap, but it's not going to be good. Or you might do something cheap, but it's not going to be fast. You take your time and use just a little bit, and then it ends up being good in the long term, and so on and so forth. You could look at those different combinations of things the way he broke it down. But the whole point here is that I like the fact that the fast was in there, because that's the other thing I've noticed too. The faster you try to lose weight, the harder it's going to be to keep it off. Because you tend to rebound easier, you have different changes in your body, there's less consistency involved. Usually when you've picked a consistent method to lose body fat, it's going to happen over time. But everything that you do becomes habit, it becomes lifestyle. And so even if you're at a point to where someone's only losing a pound of fat per month, or a pound of fat every 2 weeks, let's even use that one. Let's say it's half a pound of fat every week. It's 2 pounds a month. A lot of people say, well, that's nothing, that's not worth it. Well, if you extrapolate that out over time, that's a very sustainable thing. Usually, whatever methods a person has to do to lose body fat at that slow of a rate, it's probably something that they can sustain a very, very long time because it's easy. Running a really small calorie deficit or just doing extra activity to burn just a few extra calories, training a little harder, maybe increasing your protein a little, maybe cutting your carbs a hair. That's easy. That's sustainable. Well, if you take something like that and it's well half a pound a week into being 2 pounds a month, well, you extrapolate that out over 6 months. You extrapolate that out over a year. It's like 24 pounds in a year. Doing something that's basically easy because it's consistent, because you barely notice. Because it doesn't take a big lifestyle change to burn, an extra 300 calories a day. That's basically what that represents. Or to eat 300 calories less, that's a pretty small change. Most people can handle that. And be consistent. It comes back over to his point about consistency. Because yeah, slow fat loss is consistent and easy. You'll get to your goal eventually. We also come back at that point of people who say, well, I want to get there fast. Well, the result could be that you rebound. You're going to find yourself bulking and cutting a lot inadvertently. Now, I've always found that to be true. Anytime I lost weight quickly, I regained all of it relatively quickly too. Any point in my life. I've never, ever seen an exception for me personally. Hey, you might be different. You might be different. But if you're different, you're probably not a person who necessarily struggles with body fat either. People who struggle with it, those rebounds will get you. People who have previously been fat, who try to lose weight too quickly, you tend to rebound really easy. You tend to binge. You tend to have problems. It messes with your consistency. And I think people who even look at someone like Jeff and what he does, he's the same approach because it's just about slow consistency with it. And it, quite frankly, has worked quite well for the guy. The guy is never, ever not lean. And you take that around full circle, and you've got people like me who are kind of repeating the same message. Yeah, we've lost 100 pounds, but we don't get Jeff's level of lean. Never will be. Not my goal. I don't want to be. Not even my goal. It's not desirable. But I could take the same journey I've had and listen to what he said and say, well, he's right. So it works for both groups of people, doesn't it? It works for people who want to get really lean and stay there, right? It works for them. It works for people who need to lose 100 pounds of fat just to be healthy. Principle's the same, and it works. So all in all, I'm going to give this particular video of his 5 stars. I don't have any real criticism of it. It's a good video. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.